Hey, what is going on, everybody out there? This is Jakejames Lugo. Welcome to the channel, and welcome to a brand new episode of Definitive Discussion Rebooted, where I bring on phenomenal individuals from all over the games industry and the various corners of the internet, and they come on the show just to come talk with me about a bunch of cool stuff, some interesting topics for us to deep dive into. If you haven't already, I highly encourage you guys to check out some of the other episodes. There's a full playlist now on the YouTube channel with a bunch of great guests, a bunch of great topics that I know you guys are going to love, and also don't forget, there's also the Patreon page. If you pledge at the dollar level or higher, you get a whole bunch of exclusive content, including the exclusive EX mode, where every single guest has their own little topics here and there that we dive into a little bit more stuff that's a little bit different than what we cover on here. But anyway, let me know what you guys think about that stuff down below in the comment section. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and all that stuff. Again, all the plugs are out the way. So now here's my next guest that comes from Capcom, believe it or not. This is Kathy Dongo. Okay, she does a lot of stuff involving sales over at Capcom, but she's also done some marketing stuff over at Nintendo for a number of years. So Kathy, welcome. It's good to chat it up with you. What's good?
Thank you so much for having me. What an honor to be on your show. Really appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah, this is cool. And it was kind of random too, because we crossed over, or at least we crossed paths on Instagram. Just randomly, because I know you've been doing a couple other podcasts here and there. So I was like, you know what? Let me just see if she wants to come on and just talk. And we were like, yeah, sure. I was like, oh, okay, that's dope. That's pretty cool.
To be honest, I was so excited to see your note. I was like, yes, let's jump on this. Thank you.
And it works out cool because you worked at two companies that are dope to me. Because again, being a gamer for most of my life, I love Capcom. I love Nintendo. So I'm like, okay, this is going to work. So the fun thing is, at least for you, at least being on this show, is that we're going to talk about something that I haven't discussed yet on the show before, which is marketing and PR. You know, when it comes to gaming, when it comes to the games industry and stuff. Because a lot of people, I feel like they have this impression or this like outlook or perspective about this stuff, but they never really kind of like looked into it, or at least heard about it from someone that's actually, you know, been around this type of stuff, or at least knows in some way. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. From the feedback I've gotten from people when I've told them that I've been part of marketing and campaign planning is, they're surprised to hear that there's a lot of strategy and, coordination involved. Like, things don't happen arbitrarily. They are well thought out. They are timed. They are planned. And I think most people, like I said, are surprised to hear that.
So whenever I hear the phrase like marketing, campaign marketing, PR, and all these things put together, because I think a lot of people really kind of interchange the terms, or at least they bundle them up together whenever they're talking, or at least it comes up in conversation, is that there's this immediate, perspective, or at least this immediate thought that like, oh, okay, you're the type of people that work with either a lot of the influencers, the content creators, the media people that are covering these games. But with you, and again, looking at some of your stuff, there's a whole other side to this than just that. It's involved with actually presenting the games as they're about to come out, getting people to check out some of these trailers, some of the big banners that I'm pretty sure a lot of people see, especially like with us, when we go to E3, we see those big banners all over the place on like the side of buildings or all these other places and stuff. But again, there's even more beyond that. So for someone that doesn't know anything about this stuff, how would you explain really marketing to someone in relation to the game industry?
At its core, marketing is increasing awareness of a particular product or service with the intention of having a goal. And in this case, for games in particular, the goal is selling them. So conversion. Yeah. So that's it in its purest. And what people don't realize, I don't think, is that there are different groups responsible for achieving this goal. So there's, like you mentioned, there's the team that handles personalities and influencers, etc. There's also the team that handles what the experience is like on device, or in print or advertising. And then there's the other teams that are involved in handling what the communication is like on social media. And there's more than that, but I'll stick with those three in particular. Yeah. But all of those three have to coordinate together, have to leverage the same assets, have to have a common voice. And there's someone or a team responsible for ensuring that everyone is working together with the same goals, so that they can have they can have the results that they're trying to achieve.
It's a real collaborative effort, like overall, like there's a lot of talking, between different groups and stuff. Is there one side of it that's maybe a little bit more difficult than the other? Because I would assume that you've delved in like all three, or at least looked at all three in some way.
Each one has its challenges. I would probably say that the PR side probably has it the most difficult, because there are so many unknowns and so many different personalities involved with regards to managing that side of the business. So I would probably say that, yeah, they're the ones.
In your opinion, having done it for so long, do you feel like, when you see like different things done, besides like whatever you worked on in your company, because again, you did it for Nintendo for a while, but like, obviously I'm pretty sure you talk to other people who've done similar things for other companies and stuff. Do you find it to be different amongst different like game publishers, in different ways where games get presented differently, they're shown off differently, or people have conversations started about them differently based on what you guys do behind the scenes?
So different conversations happen based on the product that you're trying to sell. So you wouldn't have the same conversation, like thinking back to the Nintendo, the 7 years that I was there, you wouldn't have the same sort of conversations or planning if you were bringing out a Super Smash Brothers and an Animal Crossing. It's a different game. It's different target audience. So you have different tactics and different plans.
Yeah.
So you curate your plan based off of the content, so the game, and then the timing. If the plan happens over holiday, then there are different tactics involved with that. If it happens over summer, there are more conservative tactics over that because summer is typically slower for this industry.
Yeah.
So the approach is different, but the process is the same. You don't want to rinse and repeat excuse me, I apologize. You don't want to develop a new plan for every launch. You want to rinse and repeat. But like I said, those tactics are dependent on the game, the timing, and of course your budget.
Now, what about crossover between audiences? Because let's be real, like people that are Nintendo fans play multiple titles. Or again, anybody that's a fan of a particular publisher probably plays multiple titles that they put out. So you're probably getting very similar audiences in some way, even though the games might be of different genres or might be of different styles in the way that they play. Like using Nintendo as an example, the same people who are probably into Super Smash Brothers are probably also into Mario, or probably also into Zelda, or probably also into Star Fox, and the list goes on and stuff. How does one manage or at least deal with something like that, especially when you're talking to very similar people?
First, you have to identify those synergies and then find out where they're hanging out and where you can reach them. And then just making sure that if there is that cross interest between platforms, that you're making it clear on what your message is, what the call to action is, what the purpose is, so that there's no confusion about what you are trying to sell. And then, of course, just making sure that all of the supporting information that you're sharing, is cohesive. So as long as you make that distinction early on that, genre, people who like genre A will like genre B, then your merchandising there should be some pretty good ROI with that because you are making that determination up front.
So here's something that I've always been kind of curious about, and I know a lot of people get confused about when it comes to these types of conversations, especially with games releases. You mentioned like different times of the year when games are coming out, like you'll talk and present games a little bit differently. Everybody complains about release dates. Like I think that's like a common thing. Everybody complains about when big games are coming out at the same time, when they're coming out in like different times of the year, the different seasons and stuff. Like, how does that usually happen? And usually not quote unquote to blame, but like who usually is the one that makes those types of calls? And how does one actually go about when like another big game is coming around the same time frame as like whatever your game is that's going to launch and stuff? Like, how do you deal with something like that?
Well, the first thing you have to look at is when do you anticipate the game being completed? Because you typically want to release the game right around when it's completed so that you can start making some money. But really, if you take a step back and you look at the year, there are 12 months. And probably about 4 out of those months, about 4 months, which is the summer. That's usually the slowest time period for video games because people are out and about.
August, right? That's May, June, July, August, give or take.
Exactly. Because people are out and about, they're on vacation. By September, everyone's back in school, so they're distracted. So if you take those out, then you have 8 months left. Excuse me.
Yeah.
3 of those remaining months are the holidays. So October, November, December. And there's everybody wants to release during that time because everyone's thinking about spending money. They want to capitalize on gifts, etc. But it's also the most expensive time to advertise your game.
True.
Ad prices go up. So you got to have a sure thing coming out in those months if you're going to compete. But let's just say you don't want to compete and you pull those months out. So now you're down to 8, 7, 6, 5 months out of the year.
Which is like the beginning, middle of the year, give or take.
Yeah, right around January to May, right about-ish. So you have really 5 months left. March is a very busy month because Japanese companies are releasing their big games at that time because it's the end of their fiscal. So really, you're down to 4 months. January being the best month because you have all that gift card money, and then slowly deteriorating, February, March, April.
Yeah.
With the exception of the big guns in March. But so really, there's not a lot of lucrative time periods in the year. So if you have all these releases, you're going to have a lot of traffic. You're going to have congestion during those weeks. So when people go, why don't they move that week? They probably just can't find a better time frame to release it in.
So let me ask you this then, as like an offshoot of that. When you know for a fact, like, okay, we've decided as a company, this game is coming out, or at least is going to be completed and ready to release by like the holiday season. Let's just say like November. Because like November, I think it's October, November is really the crazy months for a lot of the big games in the fourth quarter. Especially like when you have a big AAA title that a lot of people are like really excited about that they want to get for like Christmas and stuff, or some of the other holidays. When you know you're going to have your game coming out around that time frame, and then you realize, oh, let's just say, just again, for the sake of argument for this example, let's say like a Call of Duty is coming out, or something like crazy from like one of the other big three companies, and like it's like almost a day or two like after yours. Is there like a conversation that goes on behind the scenes, like maybe we should discuss maybe like changing the week, or we're going to go stay like with that particular time frame, or like what happens in instances like that?
Thinking back to my time at Amazon and Nintendo specifically, so it really depends on when. What I've learned is that whether or not you move your game depends on number one, do you think that particular game will steal some of your business, and two, have you already locked down some of your ads for that time period?
Yeah.
Excuse me. So you don't just make the decision arbitrarily, like, oh, we'll push it back a week, we'll move it up a week. If you've already locked down a few $1 million in advertising, you're not moving anything.
Yeah, obviously so that's a lot of moolah.
It's not that easy.
Like straight up, like let's be real.
But if you have like a Call of Duty coming out at the same time as Animal Crossing, the crossover probably will not be that impactful. So really, you have to ask yourself as a company, is it worth it to do all of this rearranging, pricing out ads, redoing graphics, et cetera, probably not. You might as well just keep steady.
Can you think of an example, as much as probably you could tell, of when maybe you guys had to decide, like, okay, maybe we really do have to do all this work because of like other stuff that's like overcrowding us? Like, especially, I can imagine if games are coming out in a similar time frame and they're very similar genres or very similar style of games, like that could get a little bit worrisome in some way.
I'm trying to think. It's funny. I can remember a lot of these conversations, but.
Or at least in some way, because I'm even myself, again, who's someone who pays attention to a lot of the different releases throughout the year, I can't really think of ones that are like, okay, this is coming out around this same Nintendo game or the same type of Capcom game or whatever else may have you. Because usually, I think you guys, and I think most of the industry is pretty good at spreading things out, as much as all of us, gamers complain about it and such. But like, when you really think about it, it's like, okay, if you have like that good week or so, or at least a couple of days ahead of schedule, people that are interested in these games are more than likely going to get both in some way, or at least choose one now and then still get the other one later.
Exactly. Especially when you're looking at January in particular. I know Capcom particularly likes to release a AAA, or at least they have in the last couple of years in January. I mean, there's some benefits to not being in that compacted holiday time frame. January is great because people, by then get tired of the games they got for Christmas, and they have that gift card money that they're anxiously waiting to spend. So give them a good game, let them spend it.
Yeah, exactly. Especially if it's a brand new one that's coming out around then. Like for Capcom, I can remember Resident Evil 2 was a big one. Devil May Cry 5 was like shortly after, and that was another big one, for a lot of people. Yes. Like there's instances and examples that are like that. One thing you did bring up that I do want to expand upon is that you mentioned, because of the Japanese publishers, Japanese devs releasing earlier in the year. Is this same type of thing very similar or radically different between Japanese or Eastern publishers and Western publishers?
I don't think the business strategy is different, just the timing. Just Japanese publishers end their fiscal at the end of March. So, that's probably why they release some big games during that time, to just make sure that they've made their numbers for the year.
Yeah.
But in regards to like the US, I'm trying to think if Microsoft does the same in July, but I don't think so.
I honestly can't remember. Like, at least I'm more interested is like the same type of approach, or at least the same procedures, like very similar. Because obviously, there's a lot of different differences between what we do here in the States, or at least out here in the West and North America, and what's done also in Europe and what's done in Japan. Like, everybody has their own processes of like doing stuff.
Processes, but the goal is the same. Everybody's got to make their yearly numbers, and if you're struggling, then if you're a publisher, you got to think of, that last minute, injection of sales. And how are you going to do that? You're going to do that by releasing a game. So either move up or move out something.
True. Very true. Now, one final thing I think we should touch on that I think also is, again, it's a little bit more applicable to people like me and to people that are, again, just follow the industry, who are probably not involved as much with the business side of things, or at least, the inner workings industry. When games come out and there's like a certain perception of it, granted, you said a lot of this stuff is done by the teams that work the PR, that are trying to, get word out or get the conversation started on social media. When a game comes out and it's usually, the reception is usually negative, or the reception is not always the best, maybe not presented the best foot forward. How does one actually deal with something like that? Or how does one actually react to something like that? At least in your position, or at least in the groupings that you've been around. Because a lot of the misconception, at least I believe from what I've seen, is that, all of a sudden everybody over there is panicking because something about this game got put out there, or somebody said something about this game and people are complaining that they're not going to buy it. Like, this is the common thing that you always see on social media in places like Twitter and Facebook. But I mean, what is it like for guys like you, or for people like you out there that are actually dealing with this other stuff and seeing it all play out?
You said it perfectly. There will always be haters. Haters. There will always be.
That's a one way of putting it, yeah.
And so, as a professional, you have to step back and analyze, what exactly are they angry about? Is it factual or is it opinionated? And so, if it's opinionated, there's really nothing you can do and nothing you should do. Haters gonna hate. There you go. But if it is something factual, for example, if they say,
here, I got a good example.
There are guns in Animal Crossing New Horizon. Like, how can that be? Like, no, that then you get on the horn and you set that straight. But if it's somebody's opinion, there are a myriad of reasons of why they're probably doing that. And the best thing to do is just ignore them.
That's very true. And I think that also, from what I've seen, again, a lot of different studios, or at least people that are working these social media accounts, don't always follow that. Like, sometimes you see and it's like, it ends up being like way worse. And it's like, maybe you should just ignore this and leave it be like that. But one thing I do want to touch on that's an offshoot. Yeah, right? This is one thing I want to say, though, because I think it's also applicable too. Not necessarily with people's opinions, but let's say like something about a game, okay, a game that you're following, that you're putting out and stuff like that as a company. Like, maybe there's like a game-breaking bug, or maybe there's something big that's like a bad thing. Like, perfect example that I know a lot of people reacted to was the microtransaction stuff that people get bent out of shape about, especially for games like Star Wars Battlefront 2 and things like that aren't necessarily like, you're not putting anything out bad about the game, but this is stuff that like the internet as a whole, or at least the consumers out there, react to in some way. Like, what does one do in that position? Like, it's like, okay, what do we do at this point?
If it's something that big, I remember that and how terrible and how that blew up. You have to ask yourself as a company, what is the financial impact of this? Like, can it really damage the success of the game? And in that particular case, the answer was yes. And so you have to analyze the development costs. Like, what would it cost to change this? Would it save the game, or is it too late? And really, it all comes down to dollars and cents. Like, does it make sense? Does it not? And I don't remember how that one turned out. I think they took it out, but I'm not sure.
They really changed it up. Like, it was a hard turn left. Like, they really course corrected it, that one. But it leads, again, it expands upon my question. It's like when you have to make something like that drastic of a change, or at least have to make that call, and it's not necessarily based on the opinions of people, because again, like you said, everybody's going to have their opinion about the game, and it is what it is. You're just putting the product out and people could buy in or not. But when it's stuff like, that's happening and things that are going on on that are changing up things that are out of your control. You know, that's really where I was getting at.
Yeah, that was embedded in the game. Like that was part of the game. Like, and people had a legitimate complaint against that. That's, you know, that's not somebody's opinion of like of content. That was a legitimate complaint about the game functionality. They did not like it, and it translated into dollars.
Yeah. And funny enough, people still bought the microtransactions. That's the crazy part. Like, again, everybody gets bent out of shape.
Some people don't care, and that's fine.
Yeah, which is pretty wild. But Kathy, thank you so much for chatting up with me about this stuff. Again, this is interesting stuff that I feel like a lot of people just don't dive into. And I went to a good person to talk about it with, which is cool. So let everybody know, where can they find you? You're on the socials, right?
Yeah, I'm on, I think, everything. And, you know, I love to connect with people on any social media platform. My DMs are always open. On Twitter, I'm Lady Cuttlefish. On Xbox Live, it's Lady Cuttlefish. On Instagram, it's just like my name, Kathy D. Dongo.
I'm telling you.
And the only one I don't connect with people on is Facebook.
Yeah, I still keep thinking
Facebook is just for family. Sorry.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I'm the same way. I'm the same exact way. Like, I'm on everything, but like usually there's certain things that I just keep from like everybody else, just because I want it just for me and my fam.
Wow.
Which is good. But yeah, definitely check out that stuff, guys. Go show her some love. Send her some owl hugs, if anything. Send her pictures of owls. That's what we do over here. You know, for the people.
I love it.
We send everybody owls and stuff. But me and you are going to talk a little bit more on EX Mode. We're going to talk about some other more fun stuff, because obviously, granted, this is a little bit more serious game stuff, but we're going to talk about some fun stuff for the Patreon.
Well, I've got some stories.
This is gonna be cool. So, guys, let me know if you guys enjoyed this episode in the comment section down below. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and like I said, join up with the Patreon. Remember, dollar level or higher, you're gonna get all that exclusive content, including this EX mode that we're gonna film right now for you guys. So, anyway, we will talk to you guys again very soon. Peace out and stay epic, everybody.